Hello everybody and welcome back to another Warmachine video on the channel. Today we are bringing you Skorne versus Retribution, Beastmaster Xekaar versus Thyron, the Sword of Truth. So this one was an interesting battle. Both myself and my opponent were relatively new to the faction. I've played about 4 or 5 games of Skorne, and this was one of, it was either Reed's first or second game with Retribution, definitely his first game with a lot of these models. So it was super interesting. Neither of us were 100% familiar with what our armies were capable of, and that made it kind of cool. It is a bit of a shorter one, I do apologize, but it is also the first 75-point battle report on the channel, which is kind of exciting, and if it does well, we're definitely going to have to make a few more of these. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll catch you guys at the end of the video. Peace.
So I chose to run Thyron and Retribution for this game. I just recently picked up a bunch of Retribution, so I wanted to play the army. So I wanted to run Thyron because I thought he looked really cool, and I like that he just buffed a lot of damage, and he gave the Warjack sidestep, which is pretty cool. So he has Flashing Blade, which is really good just to clear out a bunch of infantry and stuff. Fury, which is the main thing that he does to buff up damage. So he gives +3 to melee attack rolls, but the unit suffers -1 defense. Then he gives units in his control range Pathfinder on charges with Onslaught, and with Spell Piercer he gets around like armor and defense buffs through spells, which is really nice. Then he has Storm Rager, which is mainly just a single model, massive buff, gives him +2 strength, mat, and armor. He can put it on himself or you can put it on with solo. I usually like putting on like the Warden Executioner. Then his feat gives all models in his control range an additional die on melee attack rolls and killing spree, which can be really good against infantry spam. So I chose to run the Daemon, mainly because he's got a mini Hellmouth gun, which I really like. Then I ran the Chimera, just as an arc node, so I can spread out my units and hand out Fury easily. Then I ran the Harpy because he's got a Thunderbolt gun, which is really good, and gives some range to my list. I then ran an Arcanist Mechanik, just because he's really good with the Empower, and he can give +2 damage to Warjacks too, which just stacks onto Thyron's Fury spell. I ran also Aelyth Fear, Blade of Nyssor, since I'm going to be running 2 Ryssovass Defenders. He gives them all Dying Breath, which is really good. Really punishes enemies when they kill my Ryssovass in melee. Beyond that, he's just a PS12 Weapon Master. Then I brought a Warden Executioner, who's got the Vortex Cannons, range 10, POW 12s. He's got PS15 in melee with Unyielding, Sidestep, Quick Work, and he gives other Wardens Sidestep as well. And Chain Attack Vortex Blast, so he can do a mini Hellmouth when he hits both of his initial ranged attacks. I then brought Ellowuyr with the Gorgon package, so she just mainly casts Speed of Death, so they can go up, shoot, and then move back once they're done. Then the Gorgons are just there for the -2 speed debuff on their sprays, and they can combo strike, which can be situationally good. Then I brought 2 units of Ryssovass Defenders. With Aelyth Fear, they get the Dying Breath ability, and they have defensive lines, so they get +2 defense against melee attacks, cannot become knocked down. Since they have tough, they can get essentially infinite tough as long as they're standing base to base with each other. Beyond that, they're PS10 Weapon Masters with Precision Strike, and they don't suffer blast damage when they're base to base. I then brought a unit of Ellowuyr Swordsmen. So they're good against ranged units because they get +2 defense against ranged attack rolls. They have Cleave and they have Gang, so they also hit pretty hard because they go up to PS14 with Gang and they become Mat 9, which is really good. Then I brought the Ellowuyr Officer and Standard with them too. And it gives them Overtake and a fantastic mini feat in Serpent's Coil. So it gives them all defensive strikes, so when an enemy walks into them, they can just immediately make a melee attack.
So for my list, I elected to bring Beastmaster Xekaar in Masters of War. I chose Masters of War mainly because I didn't really see too much value out of our Beast theme. and I figured Masters of War gives me access to pretty much all the models that I want to have access to, and I really like cav units, so I was going to go bring a unit of cav in here. So for Xekaar's battle group, I'm running him with the Desert Hydra. I got this model out of the mystery box, and I just really wanted to put it on the table. We're playing 75, and I was kind of like, well, I'm not going to get a better opportunity. So Xekaar and a Desert Hydra is a pretty fun combo. Between Xekaar and another Warjack in my battle, or Warbeast in my battle group, the Gladiator, you can actually get it to a pretty respectable threat range, and being able to throw out 5 spray 8s is pretty nice, so that's kind of why I brought that. I brought the Agonizer mainly for Gnawing Pain. Gnawing Pain is just a pretty fantastic ability to have. The others will toolbox come in when they're relevant, but Gnawing Pain combined with Xekaar's feet is pretty massive. So yeah, I was excited to see that. I think it's -5, yeah, -5 strength stack. So that was going to be pretty useful against pretty much anything. Next, I brought the Titan Gladiator, giving me Rush, which was the other thing that I mentioned. That's really the main reason why I brought this thing, but it was also just another beat stick if I needed it. He hits pretty hard, especially with being part of a Skorne. He has access to the Beast Handlers, so he's effectively a POW 17 and 2 POW 18s, which that's nothing to kind of skip over. He can do work into pretty much whatever he wants to do work into. Lastly, I brought the Savage, and again, this is another thing that I brought mainly for its Animus. Future Sight is just a fantastic Animus, and being able to put Future Sight or Rush on the Hydra, both of those in different situations, are going to be fantastic. For my requisitions, I brought 2 Soulwards. Really like these guys. Spirit Eye is one of my favorite items, or favorite weapons in the game. Annihilating Gaze is just like the coolest rule, and I love the fact that this little 3-point dude is gonna hit like POW 18s into most heavies. It's just a super fun model, and I absolutely love it, so I wanted to bring 2 of them. Adding to the Spirit Eye gang, I brought Aptimus Marketh. Having a Spell Slave is just incredibly useful with Xekaar. Having access to Immortality on a Spell Slave is really powerful, and turns out Magic Ability 7 actually hits things a lot of the time, so he was pretty good. And then if for whatever reason he didn't want to cast Mortality, he can reduce the cost of spells by 1, which is also kind of just good. So there's like no reason not to bring this guy. He's 4 points. He's fantastic. For another requisition point, I brought the Ancestral Guardian. I honestly kind of just brought this guy because I was running out of things that I wanted to fit into the list, and he was a high point rec option. He's got defensive strike, so I mean, he was fantastic for just kind of sitting somewhere and saying no, which is exactly why I brought him and what he's supposed to do. For my next solo, I brought the Mortitheurge Willbreaker. He wasn't really expected to do much more than toss out Puppet Masters here, but being able to give tough and influence occasionally as well, all just kind of useful abilities to have in general. For 2 points, again, it's another model that I don't see why you wouldn't bring it. Just a fantastic model all around. Next, I brought the Void Archon. I absolutely love the Void Archon. Having an armor debuff on top of all the strength buffs in Skorne is just really good to have. I figured having the Void Archon would also give me access to even more sprays, because the 5 coming from the Hydra was definitely not going to be enough. And, you know, more anti-tough and anti-healing is just fantastic. So why not? This guy basically takes what this list already wants to do and kind of cranks it up to 11. Lastly, for the solos, I brought Tyrant Zaadesh, who throughout the entire recording of this video I forgot the name of and just referred to as Lesser Warlock. But he's pretty cool. I brought him with an Archidon, and basically my whole idea with this guy was he was going to make the Archidon threat stupid numbers, and then tag team if it came up. If I wanted to put the Archidon into something worth potentially throwing them both away for, I could totally do that, and that was kind of the point. He had Sackpawn and anti-tough because of Masters of War, so he had pretty decent just personal value as well. But the main reason I brought him was to allow the Archidon to just be absolutely stupid. And of course, as I mentioned, I did bring the Archidon. The Archidon is a fantastic model in my opinion. It's a light that's on a heavy base. It's got Flight and Long Leash and Serpentine, so it's just fantastic at, you know, being able to get wherever the heck it wants to go. And then because of Lightning Strike, usually it's supposed to be able to get out. In my experience with this thing, it's not happened once, but well, we'll see how it goes in this game. I love this model, and I really hope it starts working for me. And last for my requisition options, I brought the Tyrant Commander and Standard Bearer. I brought these guys mainly to be able to crank up the cav unit, which I mentioned earlier. I wanted to be able to give a little bit of extra speed. Having my models stand up for free also could potentially be useful in some situations, such as like my war beasts and stuff. If they got knocked down for whatever reason, that's always useful. Other than that, I kind of, again, brought these guys because they were a cheap rec option, or an expensive rec option rather, and why not? So like I mentioned a few times now, I did bring a min unit of Praetorian Ferox. These guys are super fun. Pounce, Jump, Reposition is just a really fun set of abilities to have on a POW 12 cav unit with Mat 6, Speed 8. They're getting where they want to be, they're hitting relatively hard, and then they're getting to a semi-safe position after that, which is pretty nice. Brutal Charge does make them hit like absolute trucks if they do get to charge, which because of the Tyrant Commander and Standard Bearer, their charge threat is actually pretty ridiculous at 15 inches, and that allows them to be, what, 15-inch boosted POW 14s with additional dice to hit. That's pretty good. And lastly, I brought a max unit of Beast Handlers. These guys are just kind of a staple. Being able to heal and give strength buffs and fury management, like all three of these things are fantastic, and why would you ever not bring these models? A lot of this list kind of built itself, if I'm being honest. So yeah, that's my list. The whole point of it was kind of Hydra go burr, here's all my support for the Hydra. Xekaar by himself is just fantastic for running beasts like the Hydra. Being able to give +2 speed mat, really, really big for Colossals. Any way to get them up the board faster is just huge. And then other than that, like, he keeps it alive with his feet. Immortality lets it do stupid amounts of work with its sprays. And yeah, there's not really much more to say about this list. Like I said, it kind of built itself. It was a very simple list, and I was excited to run into it.
Retribution Turn 1. So on seeing Jason's list, I noticed he has like this massive Hydra, and he's got a ton of sprays. So I realize it's not great, especially with the way the terrain is. I'm going to kind of get stuck in those quarters. So I'm just going to try to throw as many infantry as possible up and try to spread them out so Jason doesn't get too good of sprays on them, and see how many survive and just hit him with a counter punch. So I'm just having the House of Ellowuyr Swordsmen move up there, and I just want them to get the middle zone and just clog stuff up with their mini feet. And they're also a lot harder to kill with their +2 defense against range, so I'm hoping that helps them survive against the Hydra. Right here, you can't really see it on camera, but I moved Lara and the Gorgons up on the flank. Just hoping to remove some of the models that Jason will put into the square zone. Then I'm moving the one Ryssovass unit up on around the terrain there. They're kind of forced to go there because they can't really stick behind the lower swordsmen, and the other Ryssovass unit are on the other flank. Moving the other Ryssovass unit, and they're just going between the forest and the terrain there. It's kind of moving as far up as possible since I'm staying out of threat ranges anyways. And I just moved Ellowuyr up with them, hopefully to cap that flag up there. Just putting the Warden Executioner up in the center there too. Just give the lower swordsman some support. Then having the Harpy move behind the building since he's got flight anyways. And the Demon's just behind the swordsman. Then I'm going to have Thyron just kind of sit somewhere in the middle, toss up Storm Rager. First here I'm going to move with the Arcanist Mechanik, just empower up the Warjack, which I accidentally put out control range so he can actually run. And then right here I'm having Storm Rager be cast on the Warden.
Skorne, turn 1. So, yeah, my opponent kind of just threw everything up, but thankfully none of his stuff really moves, like, crazy far, so I still felt like at this point I was able to threaten most things. Here, I'm moving the Archidon up. I just wanted it to be able to threaten pretty much whatever I wanted, so I'm placing it just past the wall there, blocked by the forest completely, but my plan is basically my little junior warlock there is going to be able to hopefully give it full advance, and then it can kind of get whatever the heck it wants. So I'm just deciding exactly where I want to place it, and my whole goal here is basically make sure absolutely nothing can get into it next turn. And from there, I'm putting out my upkeep spells, and I think I'm just deciding how I want to run things. So I end up, I believe I just run him over to the flag. I think he stays on the close side of the flag for me. And yep, that sounds correct to me. And then I move my my little Spirit Eye guy over beside him. At least I think I do. Maybe I wait in that till later. No, it looks like I'm throwing him up now. So I just move him to the other side of the flag there. And make sure he's not going to get shot off the table as well. I want to move him right to the edge of the threat because I want him to be able to, you know, potentially pop a dude next turn. So then, looking at the other side, I'm running my other one just into a trench where, again, same deal, hopefully he doesn't die, and he gets to do a little bit of work next turn. So that's all good, and then I move up. I want to say that was my Future Sight guy, and then I move up my Void Archon. Next, I'm trying to figure out where I want the Desert Hydra. I want it to be able to threaten everything, but I don't want anything he has to get into it this turn, so I position it just barely out of his melee threats and kind of just chill with it there. So I think I put up my Animus to kind of prevent any gunshots, and then just to be safe, I think I move him back a little bit further because I decide that I don't want to risk too much. I kind of bounce around with this position for a little bit, but I think where he is now I settle on. So next I think I'm thinking about my other heavy here, what I want to do with him and just all of my guys in general. I think I put my other heavy just kind of in the middle there, getting ready to move up the board. And then here I am moving my cav unit. So these guys, my entire idea is, again, same as everything else. I just want to be able to threaten his stuff next turn. I want to be able to threaten all the zones pretty completely, but not put myself in danger. My goal here is kind of just to avoid trading. I don't want to do any bad trades if I don't have to. So after that, I'm just moving up some of my support models now, and pretty much everything just kind of clusters behind these guys. So there's not really too much to go into detail on here. I don't think I put up any animi or any, or not animi, upkeeps or anything like that. So I'm pretty sure this is, for the most part, just everything kind of moving on up into position.
Retribution, turn 3. So right here I'm just going to decide to move up all the infantry like I mentioned earlier. I don't have much of a choice. I need a contest scenario, and if I just have my guys go in piecemeal, they're just going to get slowly picked apart, which is a bit unfortunate, but that Hydra is really scary. So I'm going to just decide what to move here first. Part of it's also deciding if to cast Onslaught for the Relentless Charge, but none of my guys can really get anywhere good by charging through the forest anyways. And they don't really have great line of sight anyways to the enemy models, so it's not really worth it. Just having the Ellowuyr Swordsmen just go in the zone and mini feet. Also trying to keep them well spread out so they don't get all die to like a single spray from the Hydra. Ryssovass are going to do about the same thing, but I'm trying to keep them base to base so they can get those infinite tough rolls. And also if they might get melee, they get +2 to defense, which is pretty good. And I'm also having them spread out somewhat too. I just have the Warden Executioner move up and sit behind the Swordsman again. And I'm going to have Thyron sit behind the wall to stay safe. And I don't believe I cast anything with him here because the -1 defense from Fury will really hurt against the sprays. So this side is not worth it. Gonna have the Demon move up beside Thyron, just maybe get some good angles on shots there, which is a bit of a misplay because I realized afterwards I didn't put any Warjacks in that zone, so I'm not going to be capping it. Then I think I end up choosing Ellowuyr to cap the flag because I thought she'd be safe behind the wall. I didn't really check through our ranges super well, but like I felt like that was a solid position, and the Arcanist Mechanik couldn't quite get there since he's in a forest right now. And I'm just having this Ryssovass unit back up a bit because I don't want to give Jason too much and have something to crack back with. So I just have them hang back a little, but still keep stuff in relevant positions. Then I'm just going to have Ellowuyr move between behind two Ryssovass so he can hopefully go after the flag next turn.
Skorne, turn 2. So looking at the board state, I realize he's given me a lot of options, and I happen to have mortality on my caster, so even though those options are usually pretty decent defense and armor, I'm actually not too worried about being able to hit them. And I'm kind of like, I have enough buffs here to basically wipe out a massive chunk of his army with my Desert Hydra alone, and then depending how well I do with that, I might even be able to keep it alive next turn and keep a lot of my other stuff ready as a wave 2 if I need it. So I'm looking over at my lower side here, and I'm also kind of trying to think about what I want to do over here. I'm worried because he does have it's not defensive strike, it's the retaliatory strike maybe? I don't know, the one that when I kill his guys he get to hit me. He does have that on 2 of his units here, so I'm kind of... Here I think I'm measuring out what I'm going to do with the Hydra, but I am very worried about getting any of my stuff that's a little bit on the squishier side to be killing his infantry, just because I don't want to die in the process. So, oh, you know what? I mixed up retaliatory and defensive. No, I didn't. I had it right. So I'm trying to decide what I want to do here, and I spend a fair bit of time just kind of thinking this over, looking at the Hydra, looking at my spell list, and kind of figuring out exactly what the play is here. I know I want to be able to put out 2 mortalities, 1 on each unit, and then I need all of that to happen before the Hydra goes. So one of the things that's going to happen is the Titan there is going to have to move just to allow my stuff to get forward. I'm also thinking that I'm going to want the Agonizer as kind of my defense line. So I see an opportunity here to take out Ellowuyr using the Void Archon, and I'm really tempted by this one just because the Void Archon has such a massive threat. Even with like the Assault Spray allows him to basically threaten, like, I want to say 19 inches with that spray, and if he has any souls at all, then that becomes boosted, which is pretty good. So I think that was one of my my focuses here, was to make sure he gets a few souls and still has a charge target that allows him to spray Ellowuyr, and then in theory, after doing that, he'll be able to take out Ellowuyr, which wipes like 20 points off the board because Ellowuyr is worth 4, but the Jacks are worth 8 each, and Reed happened to bring 2 of them. So I think that was me just launching a random Spirit Eye out, which looks like missed, which was a little unfortunate. And then, or maybe I'm just doing it now. I'm not sure. Yeah, no, I think now I'm using Spirit Eye. Is it Spirit Eye or Annihilated Gaze? One of the two. It's one of my favorite abilities in the game. So I just pop one of the dudes off there. And then I'm having my Lesser Warlock kind of just... He's going to use his offensive spell to take out the other one there, which will allow my Archidon to get a full movement towards the nearest model, which unfortunately will be that Ellowuyr towards the middle of the screen. But that's still enough for him to be able to then walk into... the character solo towards the bottom there. I don't remember his name, Aelyth or something like that. So I do take him off, and the Archidon gets a free advance. So I move about half of the distance towards him, and I put myself in an angle where I'm going to be able to get to the model that I want to get to next turn, and then, or later this turn. So I take the trees out of the way, make things a little bit easier to see. And then decide to move him over and hopefully pop a character solo off the board, which would be kind of convenient. I'm kind of trading the Archidon for this, but I think it's worth it for the most part. So, rolling here, and I'm trying to remember how this goes, because actually, if I remember correctly, it went relatively poorly. Right, I missed the first attack, so I wanted to be able to sprint away, but I missed the first attack, even boosting to hit, and that puts me in a situation where I can buy and hard roll it, but most likely miss, or buy and boost, and I think I decided to hard roll it. So I'm rolling that here, and then I miss, unfortunately, again, so I have to buy a third attack, meaning I can't get a sprint, and I actually missed it again, so... unfortunately, his solo gets to stick around for a little bit longer, despite the fact that I just put a heavy war beast into it, which was really, really annoying, but sometimes that's just kind of how dice roll. I definitely should have boosted it, but I was still kind of being optimistic on my sprint. So now I'm trying to figure out if there's any other way I can get to him. I'm looking at my cavalry unit here and trying to decide what I want them to do. So I think, yeah, I'm walking them up right now and double checking their stats, because this is one of my first games using them. I think I've used them 2 or 3 times before maybe, but it had been a while since I'd played Skorne here. So I'm just looking over what they can do, checking all their threats, and I'm trying to decide what the best way I can kind of pounce them into that group is. And just to clarify, that one now hanging out at the bottom there, he still has to jump. I just kind of got sidetracked focusing on the other ones. But if I remember correctly, he does jump into Ellowuyr, so he will be able to hit him. And then this other one, I jump him into the back arc of one of the Ellowuyrs, and my goal is basically tie up a couple of the... no, they're not Legionnaires. The Ryssovass Defenders. I think they're the Ryssovass Defenders, and then kill one of the one of the Ellowuyrs. So I jump my one into Ellowuyr, and because I'm using the pounce attack, I don't get the boosted hit and damage, but I do get +2 on hit and damage, which is almost just as good. I mean, average-wise. So I do take Ellowuyr off the table, which is really, really nice, and then I start chipping away at his infantry with this swordsman here. So now the easy part of the board is done, and I have to do the side that is going to be a lot more dice. Moving up a few of my support models and just figuring out... I'm kind of just stalling at this point with the other side. I don't really know how I want to unpack everything he has there, or unpack into everything he has there. So moving up my support stuff, realizing later that a few of these models should have been way more relevant this game, but I kind of just neglected to use them. So then I'm giving Future Sight to the Hydra, because I want it to be extremely effective and just towing the zone with my Savage over there. The Titan needs to get out of the way, so he basically, I'm pretty sure he just runs to the other side of that house there, and that's pretty much all he does. I was pretty safe in doing that because I knew if my opponent wanted to take down the Hydra, he was going to have to dedicate pretty much everything to it. So I knew there was no way he was taking both of them this turn. All of his heavies were too far back to be significantly relevant towards taking them out of the game. So then I'm moving, I think it's Aptimus Marketh right now, and deciding which one he's going to mortality versus which one I'm going to have Xekaar do. And I think I decide he's going to mortality the Ellowuyrs, and he does land it, which is pretty huge. Bringing them down to defense is going to be massive in allowing the Hydra to actually kill them. Then I move up, or no, I was going to move the Agonizer, but I decided I should probably move Xekaar first, not block myself off. So I think I'm double checking his stats right now, and yeah, he's going to move up. He's going to cast out Mortality himself. And see the dice in a minute here. I think I'm deciding whether or not I want to boost or if I want to increase my chance for a second shot. So I'm not sure if I remember. It looks like I did boost and I did land it. So that unit has Mortality now. And then I think I was deciding if I wanted to do anything else with him this turn, and I believe I end up tossing out a Pursuit on the Wardens, basically as my way of saying if you do decide to try to get into the Caster or the Titan, I can kind of just say no. And then I pop my feet because I realize that he's going to be counterpunching, and -3 mat and -3 strength is going to be massive. So I move the Hydra up, keeping just out of range, and with the Hydra, I think I was expecting to get like 8 or 9 guys out of with sprays. I wasn't expecting to kill all of them because dice happen, but I did have Future Sight on, and because of the -2 defense, I was hitting relatively trivially. So I'm just going to start rolling this out in a minute, and that process goes for a little bit because there's a lot of models here, and he's Future Sighted, as well as I think I did give him Puppet Master. So he's got one set of Puppet Master and a Future Sight, and he's just going to kind of go to town here for a little bit. So I start rolling away. I start with the Ryssovass. Or do I? Yeah, I do, and oh, I think one of them got to hit me. One of them was in melee with me, so it got to smack me. I think it did like either 0 damage or 1 damage, but I know it wasn't relevant. So there I pop off the first 2, pop off the next one, and another one. Them not having tough here is absolutely massive. Mortality is like the perfect spell into them. So I start going into the Wardens, and there I decide to add a die. Or not Wardens, Ellowuyrs. And I start missing a few here because these guys do have really good defense. So even with the boost there, I missed one. And at this point, I think I used my Puppet Master on one of the earlier ones, one of the Ryssovass. So I've missed now 2 of them, but that's okay for the most part. I'm still removing a lot of models. And now I'm deciding what I want to do with my last 2 sprays I think I have left at this point. So I know I want to leave most of those Ryssovass at the top there alive, so my Void Archon can spray out Ellowuyr. So I don't know actually what I was targeting with that one. But, oh, okay, I guess I did decide to take out the closer ones. I decided the Void Archon could just charge the farther ones and it wouldn't make a difference. And then I take that, I think I take that lower spray there. And don't think it does anything. No, it doesn't. So I ended up removing, I think, like 6 or 7 models with the Hydra, maybe even 8, which was pretty good. I was not really expecting to do that much, but once I had Mortality up and I realized how easily this thing was hitting, it didn't feel so bad. So now I don't know what I'm rolling there. Maybe that was just one of the last ones. I move up the Agonizer to put out his minus strength debuff, and then I move the Void Archon in position. So the Void Archon is basically the only reason why I'm doing this is to spray Ellowuyr. So he makes an assault charge, and with few souls from the Hydra having killed a bunch of those guys, he's planning on boosting to hit, boosting the damage, and then making himself incorporeal at the end of his turn. So not only is he going to kill at least Ellowuyr and hopefully a couple Ryssovass, he's also going to make himself really hard to remove on the next turn. So that was my roll to hit Ellowuyr, and thankfully I did, so I spent another soul to boost the damage. I don't want to chance it. You know, double ones could always happen. And thankfully I remove her from the table, which is an absolutely massive lead, because not only have I wiped out a huge amount of the infantry here, but I've also taken Ellowuyr and, by extension, 2 light warjacks out of the game. So now I'm doing my melees here, my charge target. And he gets to defensive strike me. So I want to say his defensive strike does, like, give or take 3 damage to me. I'm not even there yet, but I hit him. Now I was rolling damage, I'm pretty sure. Maybe that was my hit roll. I don't know. Oh, I think I was rolling into one of the lights that I hit, actually. That's what I was rolling into there. Now I'm rolling the sprays against the 2 guys that I was in melee with. And I think I killed one of them. Yeah, this was him making his retaliatory strike. So he hits, fails to crack armor, so then I'm kind of getting a little confident there. I decide to melee attack the last guy instead of just insta-teleporting away. He hits, and I think he does about 2 or 3 damage. I know it wasn't anything crazy. And then the Void Archon just teleports back over to the other side of that statue there. You know, contesting the zone and also being relatively safe from everything. And I think I spent his last soul token to make him incorp. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I don't see why I wouldn't have. Maybe I decided to hold on to it for next turn, though. So now move up the rest of my support, and that's my turn.
Retribution, turn 3. So I lost more than I expected. I forgot that Xekaar had mortality, which really sucked for multiple reasons. My Ellowuyr Swordsman's defense going down was pretty bad. That also sucked for the Ryssovass, but on top of that, the Ryssovass couldn't tough anymore since mortality prevents any damage removal. So I lost a lot more Ryssovass than I expected, which is really bad. So a lot of my forces got decimated there from the Hydra. So I'm just deciding what to do here, and I end up deciding that I need to take out the Hydra, otherwise I just pretty much instantly lose the game. So I'm just deciding how I want to go about doing this, because there's some order of activation stuff I got to go through, because I'm also under Xekaar feat, so my accuracy's going down. So I want Thyron to activate first here to give the boosted melee attacks, but he needs to keep stuff in his control range, so that means he needs to move up, which puts him in a pretty bad position, but it's going to be necessary if I'm going to stay in this game at all. At the same time, too, the lower swordsmen are kind of blocking the way, as well as the demons, so I need to move some stuff around before he can even go. So right here, I'm just figuring out how much I can get into the Hydra. It looks like I can get most of the Lure Swordsman unit in, but I also want to get the solo in since it's got crit amputate. And with the boosted melee attack rolls, the odds of him getting that is a lot higher. So I'm hoping he can get some work in on it too. So right here I'm finally allocating focus after I decide what I want most of my forces to do. So I'm not going to really give focus to any of my warjacks because Thyron needs to cast Fury. And I do want him camping some because I'm going to be putting him in a pretty risky position just to get some working on the Hydra. So I want him at least camping a couple. It would have also helped here if I didn't lose Ellowuyr next turn. But unfortunately her positioning wasn't the greatest, and she got kind of caught out, which is kind of unlucky. So now I lost 2 Gorgons, so I can't really deal with that flank that well either. So right here I'm just measuring the demon's threat range. I know he can't really get into much, but I mainly need to move him out of the way. And I just take a pot shot at the calf unit here. I believe I end up missing, and I end up doing nothing here. Now I'm just having Thyron go casting Fury and feeding. So I'm going to get boosted melee attack rolls, which helps even against like a Def 11 Hydra, because I'm underneath Xekaar's seat. So just make sure everything of mine should hit. And now I'm having my solo go, and hoping to roll some crit amputates. Right here I end up getting really lucky, and I managed to get crit amputate on the first one. And I'm going to roll damage, and I think I'm dice off like 7 because of like a -5 damage debuff. Or no, sorry, I'm -6. And I don't roll hot on damage, but the crit amputate still comes in handy. I do like an additional 3 damage to the column, which is really big. But the next attack I do manage to get crit amputate, but I don't crack at all, so pretty much worthless. So then I have the unit go in, and I'm not expecting a ton from them here, because they're still... I can get a lot in, but because of like a -5 aura, like even with Fury offsetting that, that's a big damage debuff, so I'm just going to see what they can do here. Hoping to spike some. I end up hitting pretty much all of them. And I get some pretty good chip into the Hydra, but not as much as I was hoping for. So by the end of this, I end up leaving the Hydra on something like 10 to 15 boxes. Which is still good damage from a single unit, but I needed a lot more out of that. I need that Hydra to go down. So I'm going to try to take some pot shots with some of my Warjacks, mainly the Harpy, since the Demon has already went. And if I fail to kill it here, it's going to be really bad for me. Yeah, so right here I'm just moving the Arcanist Mechanik, empowering this Harpy, and then just camping the flag. And I'm having the Harpy shoot at the Hydra. Oh no, sorry, I ended up trying to clear that zone, because I decided it was really low odds that the Harpy will end up killing the Hydra on that many boxes left. So I kind of gave... Then I'm going to have the Ryssovass go and try to kill the Archidon. Try to clear out that square zone. Just trying to get as many in as possible. They kind of had to fiddle around the objective a little. I managed to keep them, most of them in Thyron's control range, so they'll get the boosted melee attack rolls, which really helped here. And I walk into Jason's solo's defensive strike, because I'm hoping with my last breath ability that I can still manage to take him off the board. But since I end up toughing, unfortunately he can't make a melee attack when he's knocked down, so he ends up doing nothing. I end up hitting 2 into the Archidon, and doing pretty good damage to it. I'm hoping to remove it here, but I end up leaving it on something like 1 box, which really sucks. And I have nothing else to put into it, so I can't finish it off.
Skorne, turn 3. So here I'm seeing an opportunity for caster assassination. Thyron's put himself really close, and my Titan has pretty much a clear lane to it, so I see almost no reason not to go for it. Surprisingly, I have a lot still going for me. The Hydra wasn't killed, the Archidon wasn't killed, so even if I do end up wasting the Titan here, like this assassination fails, it doesn't feel very bad, because I think the Hydra would still clear out pretty much all of that infantry there. The Archidon can destroy that objective, and I'm pretty sure I can score up 5 this turn if I really wanted to. So I decide I'm going to go for the fun play. I move, I want to say that's Marketh right now, and he's going to try and drop Mortality onto Thyron, which I believe it lands, and after that I need Xekaar to kill something so he can get Pack Hunter, which I do. He's also going to throw out Future Sight onto the Titan, just to give myself some focus efficient or fury efficiency, because I only have so many I can go up to. So I start making my attack rolls. I remember I actually had a hard time taking this guy off the table, but eventually I did do it because I had a full stack of fury on me. And yeah, the first one leaves him alive on a couple boxes, I'm pretty sure, and then the second one removes him. If I remember correctly, maybe there was a third. Nope, the second one removed him. So then, yeah, I'm deciding if there's anything else I want him to do, and I think I think I'm going with the Titan here. And I did realize I could have put Puppet Master or something on as well, but unfortunately here the video actually cuts out. For whatever reason, the footage just stopped going in the last 5 minutes of the battle report. But I do charge the Titan in, and on my last Fury, my last attack, I do manage to take out Thyron. So that was the end of that battle report. And that was the end of that battle report. So I hope you guys did enjoy. I know it was kind of a bit of a cheesed game towards the end there. I mean, if my opponent had remembered that I had Mortality, he probably would have actually dropped a different list right from pairing. His list really didn't play super well into mine, and it kind of led to a very one-sided battle report. But sometimes that's kind of just how the dice roll, and yeah, this time it happened to go in my favor. So I mean, yeah, like I said, this was completely skewed game right from list picking, and it's kind of just unfortunate the way that played out, but in my opinion, it was still a super entertaining game. Getting to see the Hydra just absolutely demolish is really, really nice, and then seeing it survive the next turn as well after a massive amount of infantry go into it is just really, really cool, and that's one of the reasons that I felt like this battle report was worth keeping anyways. So I hope you guys agree. I hope you guys did enjoy the video nonetheless, and until next time, peace.